Hare Krishna. So I feel very privileged to have been invited here tonight. There are so many of Srila Prabhupada's disciples here who can speak much better than I can. So by all of your mercy and by their mercy, maybe I can say a little something. I found in this festival book a short speech which Srila Prabhupada gave at the beginning of the Rath Yatra in 1972 in Hyde Park. And I particularly liked it, so I thought I'd read it for you. Srila Prabhupada. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for your kindly participating in this festival, Rath Yatra Festival. This festival is coming down since 5,000 years, when Lord Krishna, along with his elder brother Balaram and his younger sister Subhadra, all together in a chariot, came from Dwarka to Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra is still existing, and the Dwarka, the city, is also still existing. So according to Vedic culture, when there is eclipse, lunar eclipse, people take bath in sacred rivers. So especially they go to Kurukshetra, a pilgrimage. So Krishna, along with his family members, brother and sister, came to Kurukshetra, and receiving this news, the gopis and inhabitants of Vrindavan, where Lord Krishna lived in his childhood, they came to see him. Amongst the gopis, Srimati Radharani was the chief. And when she saw Krishna in Kurukshetra in all opulence, she said, "My dear Krishna, you are also here. I am also here. But we are missing Vrindavan, so I wish that you come along with me again in Vrindavan, and we enjoy it in the forest of Vrindavan." These feelings of separation was preached by Lord Chaitanya. So this Rath Yatra festival is still observed in Jagannath Puri in India. And 500 years ago, Lord Chaitanya participated in this festival. And he was in the mode of separation, as if Radharani was taking back Krishna to Vrindavan. So this Rath Yatra festival is a feeling festival for the Vaishnavas. Lord Chaitanya taught us to feel separation of God. Lord Chaitanya, he never taught us that he had seen God, but he felt the separation of God very severely. Similarly, his next disciples, the Sad Goswamis, they also prosecuted their devotional service by separational feelings. So this Rath Yatra festival is a very nice feelings festival for the Vaishnava. And anyone who is participating in this festival, he'll gradually develop his dormant love of Krishna. Thank you very much for your kindness. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So this first Rath Yatra, it happened at the time of this lunar eclipse that Krishna and his brother and sister and all the inhabitants of Dwarka and all their servants, they came to Kurukshetra to observe this solar eclipse, and they set up their encampment. And there were many thousands of tents, servants, 16,108 wives with all their maidservants and cooks. There was a huge encampment in one part of Kurukshetra. And of course the Gopas and Gopis of Vrindavan, they had also come, and they set up an encampment over in the forest. They brought all their cows and everything to observe the eclipse. And when they heard that Krishna was there, they spontaneously went over to the encampment, the Dwarka encampment, and they found Subhadra, Balaram and Jagannath sitting on 3 chariots. And they grabbed hold of these chariots and they dragged them over to their encampment in the Vrindavan field, the Vrindavan mood. And this was like the first Rath Yatra. But it's very interesting because they hadn't seen Krishna for 100 years. Their mood of love for Krishna was on that very intimate level. But here Krishna was appearing as the king of Dwarka. And so they were seeing Krishna, but it wasn't the Krishna they knew. So they were feeling separation from that Vrindavan mood of Krishna. But they were also experiencing the mood of meeting. So this mixture of rasas, of meeting and separation, is considered a greater ras than either one of them separately. So this is a special mood of Rath Yatra that we're seeing Krishna in this mood and the gopis, this mood of simultaneous separation and meeting. So it's a very special occasion. This only happens on these actual Rath Yatra days, that we can go out and experience this very ecstatic mood of the Lord. So you'd like to say something?
Hare Krishna. So actually it's interesting, just going from Titiksu's point, this ecstatic mood. But if you look at any Rath Yatra, it's the one festival every year where it brings all devotees together. You know, where you meet friends you haven't seen for many years, you meet them there at Rath Yatra. So somehow Jagannath has a special mood, very merciful mood, that he distributes this special mercy where devotees come together every year in this festival. To be honest, I don't know a lot about Rath Yatra, to be honest. But wow, the first time it came to me, because most of the time I was travelling on Padayatra, with the deities of Gaunitai, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and there was one stage where we were walking actually through England and then from Amsterdam to Paris, and then in Paris we found a quotation where Srila Prabhupada wanted to have Rath Yatra from Paris to New Mayapur, which was like about 150 miles or maybe more, a long way. And I thought, that's a long Rath Yatra. You know? So Srila Prabhupada actually had these desires for, as it was, we were trying to get deities, and we ended up with very small deities on our cart, but of course it was pulled by oxen. But the idea was there that Srila Prabhupada, you know, he wanted Rath Yatra in all kinds of forms and shapes, and long processions and short processions, and he wanted Rath Yatra. It was and in this book Titiksu was holding, I remember years ago I was reading a quotation where Srila Prabhupada says that the festival of Janmashtami and Rath Yatra must be performed. So in other words, we don't have a choice. We're the instruction from the spiritual master is there. You must perform this Rath Yatra. So when I came across some countries who they'd been established for like 20 years, Krishna consciousness, but they never had a Rath Yatra, I was very surprised. But if you look, you can ask Shyamasundara Gurudas or these devotees, when did you have the Rath Yatra in England? Did you wait till you had funds and you had an infrastructure and you were able to build great carts and everything? No, as far as I can make out, Rath Yatra in England first happened after about 4 or 5 months, you know, of devotees arriving. Now, some details of the Rath Yatra, you know, I've heard the carts, the wheels broke and they carried the deities by hand and so. But still, the fact is that Rath Yatra was there in the front of devotees preaching, and this was very important. They understood that Prabhupada wanted this, and whereas other countries, that's why we travel now to other countries where Rath Yatra has not happened, and you know, and when devotees hear about Rath Yatra, yes, they get inspired and they want to get involved. And so this is what I see anyway is an important thing that Prabhupada installed in those devotees who came here in the beginning, and England was so fortunate to have the Rath Yatra going off straight away. So, thank you.
Yeah, we can talk about this different things. Yeah, Rath Yatra in England started in '69. It's before they had a temple here, in fact, as Parasurama was saying. I can tell some little stories. People want to know how we managed to get permission for these three carts, because for a long time I was thinking that we should have 3 chariots in the UK. And so every year when we would go to get permission from the police, I would jokingly say to them, you know, if we have 3 carts, it'll make the procession more manageable. Of course it doesn't, but I just used to say any old thing. because I knew they told us that they would never give us permission for 3 carts. And so I would joke with them like this, that, you know, if we have 3 carts, it's going to make it more manageable. And then in 2003, the GLA called all the persons, all the different organisations that use Trafalgar Square. They called them for a meeting at the GLA offices, and they were putting forward proposals to terrace the top of Trafalgar Square. So there was a consultation. It's one of these things where the government, they consult you about what they're going to do, and then they just do it. It's a standard government practice now. Everyone has to be consulted before they do what they want to do. So we were there being consulted, and even if the police had given us permission for three carts, we couldn't have got them on Trafalgar Square anyway. There was no room beside the columns at the bottom, beside Nelson's column. So they presented this plan that between the National Gallery and the square, they were going to fill it in and make it a terrace. Previously it was 5 lanes of traffic, so you know the square was a roundabout practically. And so this was the plan, and immediately I thought, wow, we could put 3 chariots on there. That would be an amazing thing. If we could put 3 chariots there, they'd be up high, you know, looking down over the square. And this is in, I think it was October 2003. Then in the January of 2000, I think it's January 2004, we had a phone call from the police. Normally we would have to contact them. Normally we'd have to phone the police around March time and get the permission. But they called us, they called me. And this officer in charge, he said, so how many carts are you going to have this year? And I said, well, 1. And he said, well, I think you should have 3 because it would make the procession more manageable. And it was like his idea, you know. And every year we would joke with them about this, that it would make the procession more manageable. They should let us have 3. And they'd say no. I say, have another cake, officer. And we used to take many cakes there. And so that's how we got this permission. Somehow the Lord was, you know, guiding that. And somehow the funds came, and devotees came, and somehow we managed to put 2 extra carts together by the mercy of the Lord. So.
There's one Rath Yatra that's an interesting one. It's we have a Rath Yatra that takes place at midnight, you know, and it's in a place called Stonehenge. It's an interesting festival because every day of the year the sun rises in the morning time, and because it rises every morning, you take it for granted that it's rising, you know, it's going to come up. So nobody's really waiting there on the top of the Soho temple, maybe there is, looking for the sun and thinking, will it come today or not? You know, it's something that happens, and then you just get accustomed to it. Because if the sun didn't rise, if it came up at the wrong time, the wrong distance, we'd all, you know, suffer. So and Stonehenge is the only day of the year where thousands of people gather waiting for the sun to rise. And somehow over the years, we're the only organisation actually invited to go to Stonehenge. It's only the Hare Krishnas, that the English Heritage invite us to go there. And so we go, we feed everybody as part of the thing, but then we got permission to have the cart going down to the stones, because we're based at the car park. And what it is, when everybody's coming out after their night at the stones, and we have big breakfast laid on for everybody. So the year before, the cart went down, and it's right in the, you know, midnight cart going down to the stones, and with big kirtan, and people are quite amazed. And then one of the organisers we were talking, and because Mahavishnu Maharaj wanted the cart to go right into the stones. And so he said to the organiser, could we have permission to bring the cart right into the stones, right round? And the guy was just about to say no, and just before he said no, the Maharaj goes, "Next year." He's just about to say, I can nearly see his, no. He was just about to, the no was just about to come out of his mouth. And Mahavishnu's probably going, "For next year." And the guy goes, "Yes." So it's amazing how Mahavishnu Swami has this mystic power to change the person's no into a yes. So anyway, it's a nice festival that happens, and so when Jagannath goes down, and then he'll be so next year for summer solstice, if you get a chance, you can go and see Rath Yatra in the dark. And actually, it's not just Stonehenge. There is another Rath Yatra. We have a place called the Gathering. Actually, here's a story that's a little interesting. There's a festival called the Green Gathering, and they never give us quite enough tickets. Even though the first Green Gathering festival, it happens in Somerset, and we walked there with ox carts for the first festival that they ever had. So now we have a thing that they give us permission to have a Rath Yatra during the festival. And maybe I shouldn't tell this story, but anyway, there's we are always short on tickets. You know, they never give us quite enough tickets. So the cart was outside.
Remember, you're on the World Wide Web.
Yeah, I hopefully know too many of the organisers of the Green Gathering are listening. So we filled the cart up with devotees, filled it up as a Trojan horse. And then in front of everybody, you had a kirtan, in front of all the security, everybody, and we pulled the cart on site with everybody happened to be inside like a Trojan horse. And as soon as the cart got around the corner, then everybody, suddenly there's double the number of devotees pulling the cart. And then we go on site, and then we go through all, you can imagine like, we have these gas lamps, and we put the gas lamp inside the canopy for Jagannath, and it turns the whole canopy into a lampshade. So you got this beautiful light just there, and because of the Green Gathering there's no electricity, so people are pretty much in the dark or walking around the candles. And then this beautiful cart is with the beautiful light just coming through with a kirtan party, and it brings just happiness to everybody. So like this Jagannath comes in many unusual places and giving mercy like this. In fact, actually, there was one festival where you take part in Luton Carnival, and one of the organisers said, "What is this?" You know, and I said, "This is Krishna in a very happy mood, because he's smiling so nicely." You know, and oh, that's good. You know, they're like carnival people. You know, they see many different kind of floats and things, but when they see, oh, this is Krishna in a happy mood, or this, okay, they identified and they thought, yes, this is nice for the carnival. They saw like, this is a good idea, this is what we should do.
There's one story, interesting story about how we got some cloth for the canopy. This is in 1986. I just got married and I thought, haha, we can get a new canopy made here. My wife could sew. So the previous canopy was made when that particular cart was made in 1982. In fact, building that cart, helping with it, that finished my material life off. I was visiting Chaitanya College, and I think it was Bhaja Hari at the time. He talked to me, and they were building this Rath cart at Chaitanya College. I didn't even know what a Rath cart was. I thought, what's this? And there was a devotee, Maheshvara, from America, who worked with Jayananda on the 1976 New York carts, and he was an engineer, ex-Royal Naval engineer or something, and so he engaged me for about 3 weeks building this cart with a couple of other devotees. So then in 1983, I think, I came here as a temple commander, and the first job was that Chaitanya College was closing, and I had to go and, I was told as the temple commander to go and bring the cart from Chaitanya College and take it to the manor. I'd never driven a truck before, and I went there and had a quick lesson on driving a truck, and then we drove it down. And then Parasurama, who was the TP at that time, I was given this service of taking care of the car since '82. So in '86, we decided that we needed a new canopy because the original one was made out of lorry tarpaulin. It was really heavy-duty plastic. You couldn't pack it away. It took like 4 men to lift it if you tried to take it off. It was filthy dirty. You couldn't clean it properly. You couldn't, do much with it. It looked really unsightly. So I thought, well, silk's the material, but silk wouldn't have the durability of modern materials. So I looked around for something which would give a kind of silvery shimmer to it, and I came up with this stuff called ripstop nylon. It's a kind of nylon that they used to use for sleeping bags and coats. You'd see these little squares in the nylon. So if you ripped it, it would only go like a 1/4 inch and it wouldn't go any further. They also used it for hot air balloons and parachutes and that kind of thing. So we used to walk in Covent Garden chanting japa sometimes in the morning. During the day, if you weren't doing pujari work, you have to do some japa there. And we found this shop called the Kite Shop, and they had the kites were made out of this ripstop nylon. They sold scraps of this nylon. And so we went in and we said to the guy that, well, how do you get this nylon? Can you order it? And he said, well, actually, we only take the reject stuff, which is no good for parachutes or hot air balloons. Because if there are so many mistakes or flaws in the material in a certain length, then it's rejected for health and safety. It can't be used for parachutes or hot air balloons. So it's just whatever comes into the shop, that's what we've got. And I said, well, we need a big roll of yellow and a big roll of red. And we'd calculated that we only wanted to have one join in the cloth up the middle of the canopy. So we needed a large size roll, like 4 foot or 48 inch roll. We needed 2 of these rolls. And the guy said, well, it doesn't come in that size. We only have 36 inch or 1 meter rolls. We don't have this. It only comes that size, and I haven't got any red or yellow. He said, all you can do is just call in every now and then and see. So we went back the next week, and we walked in there. Of course, I've got a dhoti on, and my wife has got a sari. The guy knew us, and he nearly fell over when he saw us. And he said, he says, I can't understand what's happened here. He said, a big roll of red has come in, and a big roll of yellow, and they're 48-inch length rolls. I don't know where this has come from. And so anyway, we said, well, thank you very much, and we bought it. And the next week we were walking japa. We were doing some japa through Covent Garden again, and the kite shop was gone. It was all closed. It was finished. So it's a very strange story. So I'll just say one more for Parasurama, because this is about the first Rath Yatra in Dublin, which happened in, I think it was it 87, 88, or 89? No, 88? I think it was 88. 86.
Sometime.
No, it was 88. It was definitely 88. And Shaunika Rishi, he'd arranged for us to bring the English cart over. And it's an interesting story, this one, because all we had was a phone number of some devotees who were staying in Dublin. And when we got near to Dublin, on the outskirts of Dublin, we were meant to phone this number of this house, and the devotees would come out in a car and find us and guide us in. So we'd been driving all day, and we got there. We got to the outskirts of Dublin, some town, probably about 10 miles out, about 11 o'clock at night. And I phoned this number. You didn't have mobiles then, we had to go to the phone box. We phoned this number, and it was out of order. And we got no other contact number, nothing. The interesting part about this, there was one bhakta who came with me to help with the driving. And he'd got this total faith in astrology. He said everything was due to astrology, due to the stars. and you couldn't change anything. It's just the way it was, and you know there was no such thing as like the Lord's intervention and this kind of thing. So anyway, 11 o'clock at night, we got to this town outside Dublin, and this phone wouldn't work. I phoned the phone company. I said, look, we've got to meet these people. Their phone's out of order. Can you give me the address? No, we can't give you the address of a phone number. It's you know, data protection or whatever they used to say in those days. And you know, there was just no way. We were stuck there. And so I came back to the truck. I got in. I told the Bacta. I can't remember his name. Steve. It might have been Steve. Back to Steve. And he was freaking out. No, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? You know, because he had no faith in that the Lord could make some kind of intervention. And I said, well, we've tried everything. It's up to Jagannath now. So I just turned the engine off, folded my arms, and sat there. So about a minute later, this car pulls up, and a devotee jumps out. And there's a devotee called Maharaj Nanda, I think, or Nanda Maharaj. Which one is it?
Nanda.
Nanda Maharaj. And he wasn't in association with the devotees much at that time. He got a beard and got long hair, and he stopped and he said, I couldn't understand, what's this Rath cart doing in the middle of this town? Because he didn't know anything about the Rath Yatra. He didn't know there was going to be a Rath Yatra in Dublin. And so he said, what's going on? And I said, well, we've got this phone number of these devotees, and their phone's broken, we don't know what to do. He said, oh, that's okay, you can stay with me tonight. He said, just follow me. He said, I wouldn't normally be coming back this way, but I went to a friend's house and I left my wallet behind the night before. And so I was just drove over to my friend's house, and I picked my wallet up, and I was driving back, and there's this Rath cart. And so we stayed with him overnight. So Jagannath rescued us that time.
So Rath Yatra is never always easy. In fact, it's never easy. There's always many obstacles, and that's part of the process. Because if it was very easy, then you know there'd be no endeavour. And I'm sure almost every Rath Yatra there's situations where you're just praying that things will work out. Like, for instance, we were travelling through Germany, and we got pulled by the German police because our vehicle was over 20 years old, and the cart, the trailer, everything was wrong. Everything was wrong, and they pulled us over, and they were going to confiscate the truck. Even they were going to take the trailer away, the cart away, everything away. It was like, so they gave me. We argued with them, you know, and we argued with them. And like I had too many devotees in the van. I had this, I had so many things. So they gave us a list of things that were almost impossible to fulfill. You know, and we had to get to, you know, we were on the road, we have schedules. And the list was almost impossible. There's such things on the list was fixing an oil leak in this 20-year-old truck, you know, and we barely had a screwdriver between us, you know. And oddly enough, when I got under the van, I thought, I'd just take a cloth and clean it a bit. And then I noticed one nut was loose, and we just tightened that, and that was it, you know. And then all the other little bits and pieces that are almost impossible to fix or repair or change. And this was all happening at midnight, in the dark, you know, and in terrible weather. The devotees were just sleeping on the ground wherever they could, and this was going on, and we had to get moving by 4 o'clock in the morning. So between midnight and 4 o'clock in the morning, just two of us just managed to fix this, change that, move this, that way. And then the police came back. They'd chained the cart up. They'd, you know, they were sure it was impossible to what they've asked us to do. And then, you know, because we were having quite an argument, you know, we were saying, look, this van is roadworthy in England, and they were saying this is not England, you know, or this is Germany, you know, you know. So but the impossible task we managed to fulfill, and then I had to send devotees hitchhiking ahead, and we picked them up a little later. And so everything, you know, obstacles, sometimes very big obstacles come. And sometimes obstacles also come like natural obstacles, like the rain. Rain comes. We were in Norway, the first Ratiyatra ever. The rain was coming down like anything. And like that day before, it rained all the day before. And then that morning all the way. And in this instant, they wanted Ratiyatra at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which was unusual because usually it's 1 o'clock. And at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we had the cart ready. And then just as it struck 4 o'clock, when it was time to start, of course what happens? The sun comes out. You know, and everybody is like, how is it possible? You know. And all these things happen, even everything from where's the money coming from, where are we going to sleep tonight, what's going to happen at the next festival, you know, all these things. You have to make a plan, and Krishna sees, you know, you can't just go blindly, you know, drive out the road and hope everything will happen. You have to make a plan, and you do as good as you can. But when you're striving for something that's very big, something that's a festival that hasn't happened before, that you may not have proper permission from the police, you may not have so many things, so many limitations, so many obstacles may be there. But at the end, very often Jagannath does the magic and the whole thing happens. I'm sure Titiksu has plenty of experience of that.
Yeah. Well, we regularly get pulled by the German police going down to Hungary. We've been going down, I think, 16 years now. We've been going down to Budapest with the English cart. The first year we went down. Actually, there's one police which are worse than the Germans. It's the Austrians. They're more German than Germans. So the first year we went down, we knew we were probably over width for Europe, because the width limit in the UK was 9'6", which is 2.9 metres. And the width limit for most of Europe, apart from Holland, which is 3 metres, the rest of Europe is 2.5 metres. So we knew we were over width the first year we had to go down. But we didn't know where to get permission from. We tried phoning up different, you know, traffic departments of different countries, but the Germans would refuse to speak to you in anything but German. Same with the Austrians. So there's myself and one devotee, Dushanta. I don't know if you know him. He used to look after the grounds at the manor for many years. He's now in Wales. But it was myself and Dushanta. We drove down, and we thought, what we'd do, we'd try and get there under cover of darkness. So we planned it. So we got off the ferry in Belgium just as nightfall was happening, and we thought we'll drive as fast as we can without stopping, figuring that the less time we're on the road, the less chance we've got of getting caught. So we were driving 4 hours on, 4 hours off, all night, and then all the next day we got through Germany, and by the afternoon of the next day we were halfway through Austria, and we were driving probably a bit faster than we should have done. Probably we were doing 65 miles an hour probably. Well, we were. And Dushanta was overtaking trucks and things, and we got this over-width vehicle, and we're in a fast lane overtaking things, and it's swaying around all over the place. The next thing we know, the Austrian police car pulls us, traffic cops, and so he pulled us over. There's just one policeman, and he says, "It's too wide. It's too wide." And I knew it had to be 2.5 meters, and so, you know, he was at the back of the truck looking at it. You know, it's too wide, and I said, "No, 2.5 meter," and I took extra big steps, and I was pacing out. I made it 2.5 meters. He said, "No, it's too wide," and then he said, "Where's the reflector?" Because you have to have reflectors, these little red triangular reflectors, and then you're supposed to have some big marker boards, which we didn't know about. And he said, "Where's the reflector?" And so I started pointing at all the little mirrors on the back of the car. reflector. And the guy's looking at us like we're crazy. And And then he said, "Where's the papers? I had the wide load permission." And so we just kept showing him a driving license and this and that, and different papers, but pretending we couldn't understand him. So then he went off to his police car, and he was looking in the boot, and he got his briefcase, he emptied it, shook it all out, and he was looking in the glove box. And myself and Tashana were thinking, well, what's he doing? You know, we figured we must be looking for a tape measure, you know, because he had to prove it was, you know, for the German, everything has to be perfect. You know, he had to perfectly prove that we were too wide. And then he couldn't find his tape measure. He's a traffic cop, you know, he couldn't find his tape measure. So he came back, and he looked at us, and he just went, "Ah!" like that. He just freaked out. He just went, "Ah!" both hands in the air, and screamed. And he ran in. He got in his police car, and he disappeared. And myself and Tashana were looking at each other. Has he gone? What's happening? You know? I mean, we were just too unperfect for him to handle. We just freaked out. And we stood around, you know, for 10 minutes. We thought maybe he's going to get some friends or something. And he didn't come back. So we just got in, and we got back in. We drove straight out of Austria without stopping. But so we did the Rath-Yatra, and I bought some little reflectors. But then the Germans got us on the way back, and we had to buy. We got held up for 24 hours on the Austrian-German border, and they made us go to some town, and what was the name of the town? Passau. We had to go to Passau, and we had to get the permission from some town hall in Passau. They got a taxi driver and told him where to take us, and we had to obviously pay for all that. We had to buy these wide load markers. We've been impounded on the border a few times for not having proper papers and stuff. Even though you try and get everything, you just can't get everything perfect. There's no way that you can fulfill every single rule and regulation. So we've been impounded a few times. What they do, you rock up to the border, and they just take everything off you, all your paperwork, and that's it. You can't go anywhere until you sort out whatever they want to do. But another time, actually, we were going down to do Paris, and then to Budapest, and then back. This is a few years back, and we got as far as Dover, and I said to, I think it was, can't remember if it was Terry or Tushta Krishna was with me at that time. Back to Terry. Okay, get the passports out. So we got our passports out. I looked at my passport. It was 4 months out of date. And I'm thinking, what can we do? You know, we've got to take this card. I made some inquiries, and they said, well, there's a kind of office of the French embassy or the French customs here in Dover. You can go and see them if you want, and explain the situation. And I decided not to, because I thought that gives them a chance to say no. So we decided we would just see what happened. So we went up to the ticket booth, and we showed them the passports, and the guy didn't notice. So we got a ticket to Paris. So at least we got because we only had one night to get there before Paris Rath-Yatra. And then we had a week's break before we had to get down to Budapest for the next weekend. So we got to Paris and went to the British Embassy, and they said, well, we can't help you, we can't do anything really. You have to have an address in Paris where you're staying, and it will take a couple of months to sort it out. So I thought, well, can't do anything there either. I was quite disgusted at the British Embassy and how they look after the citizens. But anyway, so I thought, okay, we'll just have to go. So we drove from Paris down through Germany. The Austrians had a look at the passport, and they didn't notice it was out of date. Then the Hungarians had a look, they didn't notice it was out of date. And we got to Budapest, and we did the festival. And then we had to come back. And the same thing. Somehow or other we got to the Hungarian border, showed them the passport. They didn't notice it was out of date. Again, Austria. And that was it. Somehow we got all the way across Europe without a passport. Back. Somehow, by the Lord's mercy.
sometimes we have ideas, like this year we have an idea to do a tour of Italy. Hopefully it's going out to world. So maybe somebody in Italy might get involved, because I've sent over a proposal that we do 10 Rath-yatras over the space of 10 days. You know, 1 Rath-yatra every day, because to do 1 Rath-yatra is, you know, once you get going, then you can do 10. You know, you have the cart, you have the devotees, you got the deities, you got the festival. You know, we usually have a drama group with us. We have a whole team. So usually the town just has to organise the permission, organise the feast, invite all the devotees, and it's as simple as that. Many different ways of doing Rath-yatra, but this is a simple way that, of course, it's the only way that we have that we can do. And just like before, we had the idea, let's go to Scandinavia and do Rath-yatra. You know, it was like some devotees. For some places, we only had a phone number for some devotees, and we just have to turn up in the city and hopefully bump into that devotee. You know, what we do is usually we get there the day before and we go in Harinam. And like when we got to Oslo, we go in Harinam, and somehow we bumped into the devotee. You know, I said, yeah. And luckily he had informed the congregation, and so in other words, it wasn't overly organised, you could say. But still, it's better just to go ahead and hope that things will work out. In fact, for that tour of Rath-yatra, we built the cart, we built the canopy, we built all these things, and then we were expecting to get a lend of a set of Jagannath deities, and it fell through 2 days before we were leaving. So there we were, a whole tour was lined up, and the cart was ready, and there's no deities to bring. And we can't just go with a little set of deities, you know. So we thought, well, what to do? So we said, okay, we're going to make the deities. We're going to build deities in 2 days. We're going to carve them in 1 day and paint them on the 2nd day. And I spoke to one devotee, Mahavijaya, and he builds deities, and he's a builder. He says, it'll take you weeks to build deities, it's impossible. But he came and gave us some direction of how to do it. So we stayed up all night, carving, building. We kind of like looked at it from quite a scientific way. And actually, by carving the deity of Jagannath and Baladev Subhadra, you actually realise how intricate their form is, and how very wonderful different shapes in the Lord's form that you don't normally notice. And so we all just took it on. Let's just build these deities, you know, even though we thought it was impossible, but we just went for it. And sure enough, the deities came out beautiful deities, you know, a little bit smaller than what we have here, but that will fit the cart nicely. And so when we turned up, actually when we turned up in these countries, they thought, oh, these are the deities from London. And I said, yeah. The deities from London. And actually, funny enough, when we parked the van, and the base, actually in Sweden, we parked the van, and I put the deities in the front of the van, Jagannath and Subhadra, Baladev and Subhadra, you know, in the passenger seat, and Jagannath behind the wheel, and then the devotees were walking by the next day, and it looked like, because Jagannath's arms were like this, and the steering wheel was there, it looks like they just drove this truck and parked it up, because they didn't. A lot of devotees didn't know we were coming. There was just like a notice on the notice board that there's a Rath-yatra today, and even when we arrived there, there's nobody saying, okay, Prabhu, you're here, have you got instruments, have you got the speaker system, do you know where you're going to be? We just saw there's an address on the notice board, and we just typed that into our sat-nav and thought, well, let's go there. And so we turned up there, and so when many devotees walking by, wow, there's a new van here, and they look and they see the window, and there's Jagannath, looks like he's come himself. He's just appeared, he's driven himself. And then so we just turned up at that place where we were supposed to be, and then all of a sudden devotees coming from all different directions, and so many devotees just come, and then the kirtan just starts, and the whole thing just happens, you know. It's very, very wonderful thing, and this brings such happiness to devotees. that you feel inspired. Yes, we've driven thousands and thousands of miles, a couple of thousand miles for this festival, and it's worth it to see, when you see the cart in like, the cities are places for people are materialistic. You know, that's what a city is for, is materialistic life. You know, whereas the countryside is some bit more of goodness, but the city, and then you find the centre of the city and the busiest street, and that's where Lord Jagannath will come, because Jagannath, Lord Jagannath with his eyes open like this, and people who are just, the mercy is going out, people who are just walking on the street and they're seeing, wow, you know, they're just looking up and seeing, and Jagannath is so obviously there that these people are getting this mercy, and mercy is going around everywhere, that the mercy is going to the people, and also we are getting the mercy as well. So it's a give and take. We are there because we put the endeavour in to bring the deity, and then the deity is responding, and it's just a win-win for everybody. And one nice thing that's been happening lately now, it's a very wonderful thing actually, is we're connecting with Namhata devotees. Devotees in some small town, some part, and they have a Namhata, and we said, okay, you organise Rath Yatra. And specifically there's one place in Crawley where the devotees just got it together, got permission, they advertised in the newspapers, they organised the media to come, they organised prashad, no, well actually I brought the prashad, but they gave us some money for the prashad, they organised a free coach from Soho Street, a free coach from the manor, paid for it themselves, and all the devotees came and had a wonderful time. And this has now been duplicated. This year we went to Plymouth, and devotees there, they put a marquee in the town centre. There's one big advertisement billboard with Rath Yatra, Jagannath Festival in town. They organised even a hotel for devotees to stay, organised so many things, organised so much prashad for distribution. And I could see that without Jagannath Festival, then this would not have happened. It never happened before, such a scale of a festival. And the devotees who got involved, they feel enthused to, and I told them to make a pledge that let's do this every year. So it's a nice thing that from nothing happening, where nobody sees Jagannath, to devotees committing themselves to doing this every year. That's for me, that's the thing that enthused me very much over the last couple of years, that devotees take it upon themselves. They say, yes, I want to have a Rath Yatra in my town, and it's possible to do it. So that's a wonderful thing that's happened.
I can relate to what Parasurama was saying about the devotees coming together, because for most yatras, it's the only time that all the devotees come together. As in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, once a year all the devotees would walk down to Jagannath Puri for the festival, and they'd all meet up. And so, for me, you know, to see all the devotees associating and really happy and having prasadam together, for me that is the most important thing, really. And the Parasurama Prabhu, he cooks the feast for London, for the London Rath Yatra. He'll go out and do some carnival or something on the Saturday before London Rath Yatra, and then he'll get back, he'll then go and do Saturday night Harinam. He'll get back at the manor about 11, and then he'll cook all night, 15,000 plates of prasadam. And then he'll come down to Trafalgar Square and help with the serving as well, the transfer. And it's a remarkable achievement, really. And actually, Parasurama Prabhu, I don't know if anybody here knows, but he received a GBC, Euro GBC award recently for an excellence award for his services in terms of book distribution, preaching, Rath Yatra and Food for Life. So it's a very prestigious award.
one thing about the Ratiyatra, cooking for Ratiyatra, is actually, it's a very wonderful thing, because it's like a big challenge, and you get a chance. We're very fortunate actually in England, very fortunate, that Titiksu says to me, buy whatever you want. So we were able to spend £1,000 just on paneer. The ISKCON cost us £1,300. You know, just as I'm younger, so it's like, wow, you don't mind how much paneer, you know, and you can just say, you just want this, and all we were able to buy, like for cooking halava, we buy a thing called gari. It's a made from potato, but rather than semolina, we use this, and it makes very nice halava and also cooks very quickly. So we learn. We have a list, a vogal list now, exactly what is needed for this festival. We know how many drums of rice is needed, how many sabji is needed, how many halava, shrikhan. We know exactly how much it's needed. And then the different items you need to prepare the day before. You cook the paneer the day before, so it's soaking and it gets a bit tastier that way. You make your shrikhan, you have it in the fridge. You plan it all out, and it's a nice challenge. It's like, it's not like a chore, but it's something like, wow, let's do it, you know. And the devotees who come, and of course everybody's invited to, and we always need lots of help. But it's a nice challenge to take on, you know, and you feel real fun, and also there's definite reciprocation. You can feel Jagannath's happy. You know that's Jagannath wants a big feast. You know that Jagannath wants a big procession. He knows he wants a nice sound system. He wants these things. And that's how we can get the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, is attempting to, in whatever way we can, do something that to attract Krishna's attention. And putting on Ratiyatra festivals, I feel, is something that you can feel that Prabhupada's there, and yes, it's something that, yes, that's Prabhupada wants that. It's not like a question of maybe Prabhupada wants or maybe he doesn't want. No, it's something that you know Prabhupada wants that, and if you do that, you will get Prabhupada's blessing. And it's so definite that you know there's no, well, maybe we should do Ratiyatra this year or maybe not, or you know it's a very definite thing. Whereas so in this country we're very fortunate in that way that we have the resources, and also the police have been very good. Well, up till now they haven't charged us, you know, and even in our Gorpanim and the Sringadev Harinam, they've let us get away with it. And you know, where in other places you'd have to pay a lot of money. In many of the carnivals around the country, because we take part in a lot of the carnivals, they had to close down because of health and safety, and also the police were charging a lot of money for closing the roads. And so this is, so like the Watford Carnival doesn't happen anymore. Many carnivals don't happen because of the police. It's costing so much money. And even in the Luton Carnival, they had to cancel a couple of times because the weather was so bad, and it cost them a fortune with the police. And so we're very fortunate that in this country we're not getting charged these things, and we're having people coming forward and willing to sponsor the prasadam, and we have so many volunteers there, you know, who are putting on you know, actively, you know, to organize 3 carts there. It's like a mission impossible. And then on the other side, organize the prasad to be there on time, to organize the stage program, the whole festival. It's quite an endeavor, and when it happens like this, and we can see in this country, we have such a blessing that there's no big opposition from the authorities, that they welcome cultural festivals, and so this way we're very blessed that way. And whereas other countries, they would never get permission for such a festival. So we're fortunate here, and we should count our fortune like this, that we're lucky and that we can expand like this.
Well, things have been getting a little bit more difficult in London. London seems to lead the country, and health and safety started being an issue for us about 8 years ago. and we had to start writing risk assessments, method statements. At the moment we have to submit the manual we've got with all this information in it, how the festival's supposed to happen, insurance details, risk assessments. The whole thing is over 60 pages now. It's a huge fat manual that we've had to put together. And just from next year we're going to have to pay for road closures. It's not the police's fault. Central government in 2004 introduced a law that the police could not do road closures for community events free of charge anymore. So the police ignored it and carried on doing it another 4 years. But they were threatened with court action because I think the council tax, which is raised in the different boroughs, it goes to pay for the police. So the councils have had a vested interest in the police not doing extra things which cost money. So from next year we have to engage some kind of road closure company to do the road closures, and the cost of that is going to be £30,000. So in January we'll be launching a patron program, and we'll all hear about that in due course. But we can also hire the police privately as well, and so we'll do that since we know them very well. There's some really nice guys in the Metropolitan Police. One officer even requested, even though he'd gone to a different police station, to Paddington, to a different area, he requested that he could be in charge of the procession. And he came back to do the procession the year after he left Scotland Yard area. So the police, they really like the procession, and they like the cakes. Every time I go for a meeting with the police or GLA, we have to deal with 4 different authorities at the moment. There's the Greater London Authority, Hyde Park, which is Royal Parks. Thankfully we don't have to deal with the Pavement Commission, which is the parks, the roads within the park are governed by the Paving Commission, the Pavement Commission. We've never met them. Then there's the Metropolitan Police, and then Trafalgar Square is run jointly by the Greater London Authority and Westminster City Council, so we have to deal with both of them as well. And we've been told that for next year with the procession we have to deal with London buses, Transport for London, Westminster City Council, and the GLA. They're all being involved with the procession because it's not coming directly under the police anymore. So there's a whole can of worms we've got to deal with next year. But every time we go to a meeting it costs about £30, because we get a big slice of cake for each person in the meeting and a big slice of cheesecake. We put them in a plastic presentation box. So we go down to Scotland Yard. You can't just walk in there anymore. So we're there with these big takeaway bags, full of cakes. And what have you got in there? I say, oh, it's cakes. So we've got a meeting. So they have to X-ray the cakes and the whole thing. It's just like getting into an airport to get into Scotland Yard these days. You have to have passport ID, photo ID, whole thing. But once you're in there, they're really nice guys. Out of all the authorities we deal with, they're the most friendly and the most helpful over the years. They've been really good bunch of guys. Let's see. I just want to say a little story about something which happened in Bombay in Srila Prabhupada's time. This story was told to me by Giriraj Swami, who was there at the time. And he said that a life member had come to visit Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada was talking with this life member about what happens at the time of death. And so Srila Prabhupada was explaining that at the time of death, one's whole life flashes by like a movie film. Everything, you see everything, it sort of flashes by. And Prabhupada said that, but when the movie gets to the point where you see Lord Jagannath on the Rath car, he said at that point the movie stops and you go back to Godhead. So I thought that was a nice story. This is Srila Prabhupada told that story. Someone also told me they've seen that in the Conversations books somewhere. I don't know where it is, but So Rath Yatra is very special. It's very special also because all of the activities of the Krishna consciousness movement are there on public display. Everyone can see everything we do. Deity worship is there, prasadam is there, book distribution, harinam, everything, drama, everything is there. All our activities are all wrapped up into one festival. And it's public as well. It's there for the benefit of the public directly. So,
is there any questions anybody would ask maybe on any of this? There's one small story I could it's very similar to Titiksu's, talking about the health and safety. It's quite an issue now, but we're getting a little bit more professional. We're kind of, we're taking the temperature of the food and all that, and it's actually we're quite on top of things actually now. Like this, when we got to Trafalgar Square,
it was half an hour they took, right, last year.
Yeah,
we went in the van. Tell them the story. You were there.
Oh yeah, when we arrived with all the barrels, then they check the temperature of everything, and we keep notes what time they've left, what temperature was there, and they've been quite satisfied.
Someone said they had a mobile lab. They put on white coats because we have 36 250 litre barrels about this size, like water butt size. We've got 36 of those, so it fills a whole 7.5 ton truck completely. And apparently I wasn't there because I was with the carts and the procession, but I heard that they put white coats on. These two people from environmental health, the two ladies, they put white coats on, and they went into the van, into the back of the truck, and they spent a half an hour in there analysing for all kinds of diseases and stuff. I don't know, different viruses and things, and temperature monitoring. And after they couldn't find a single thing wrong. Somehow, by Krishna's mercy, there wasn't a single temperature was out. They passed the whole thing, signed it all off. So it's Parasurama Prabhu's expertise in cooking things so that they can spend an hour. We're only supposed to transport them for 45 minutes. We tell them, it left the man at such and such time, but it actually is about an hour and a half. And somehow it's still really, really hot when it gets there. And there's also an art, which very few devotees probably know, but Parasurama, I'm sure he's an expert with this one, is that you have to know when to stop cooking, because when you've got all these barrels, it carries on cooking. There's so much heat in there that you have to stop cooking. You have to get it just right so that it carries on cooking during the journey in its own heat. So that, I don't know how one learns that skill, but Parasurama Prabhu has that skill, and it's a very rare skill that you can, most places in India or other places where they cook large amounts of prasad, they just cook it on the spot. It's just cooked and then they serve it. But there's a Western phenomenon that we have to deal with, especially with Rath Yatra, is to be able to cook kind of remotely at long distance and somehow, get it there. And when it gets there, you open it up, it's hot enough and it's just finished cooking at that moment when you're serving it. So the serving we increased because there was, many of you probably know, there's a job to get prasadam in Trafalgar Square. There's big queues, it takes a long time. So we doubled the amount of serving points last year. Instead of three lines of tables, we had 6. And I think we cut down on one or two preps just to make it quicker to serve. So we got this, some devotees were waiting an hour and a half, 2 hours for prasadam, which was ridiculous before. And we got it down to 20 minutes. The devotees serving said they were serving 4,500 plates an hour. They were serving all afternoon. So very good.
Yeah, we get there and we started serving at 1 hour before the carts arrive. So the devotees who are on the square have already taken, so it speeds up a bit. But one thing that happened in Manchester, we had the Rath Yatra, and we couldn't get permission for the bollards, and they're about this height. So every bollard so it wasn't just pulling the cart of Jagannath, but then everybody, big crowd, had to lift the cart and lift it over the bollard. So and the whole, and at the same time everybody's lifting, but you have to lift it, you know, all together as a team. It's quite hard. So this year the Sri Bangananda emailed me and he said the temple council are worried about the Rath Yatra cart. They're not sure should you have a cart because of the health and safety. So he asked me, can I email him a letter to assure him that it's all fine. So I wrote saying there's absolutely no health and safety risk involved in this one. It's completely fine. Nothing could go wrong. But then the day before the Rath Yatras to start, Sri Bangananda managed to get the key to get the bollards taken down. But we just thought, look, we'll just go for it.
One time in Birmingham, they forgot to unlock the bollards, so we just got hammers and smashed the locks off. We just smashed them and opened it up. Another time in Paris, there was one road. We turned off the main road into this little narrow road called the I can't remember the name of it, but there's cafes and you can just get the cart down. And there's, as you come down, you know, there's all these cafes with tables and chairs outside, and you're kind of like scattering them everywhere. You know, there's people falling in their dinners and things getting spilt and tables getting turned over. And then we were told, we got there and the devotee said, well, actually this year we can't go down that road. They've put concrete bollards across it. It's a no entry road for vehicles. And these they were like, you know, like you'd have to stop tanks going through, you know, like the big lumps of concrete about 2 foot square by 2 foot high, and they were placed like that. And so we measured it and we found out that if you got the wheels just right, you could get them between the bollards, and the cart would go over the top. And so the police are all waiting there. I mean, we're coming down the road, and the police, you got to go in there, and somehow we got across, and. So we were going over that way for a few years. There's other things we had difficulty with, lots of things. Oh, a few years ago in London, the health and safety people, Westminster City Council, they started to get more involved. And the guy, on the front of our manual with all the risk assessments, we had a picture of the carts. So this guy looked at it and he said, how high are the handrails? He says the handrails on a moving vehicle have to be 3.1 meters high. And I said, oh, they're about 24 inches. He said, well, you know, it's not allowed. You can't do this. They have to be. And I thought, it's going to look weird with these high. Jai, Jai, Sri Sri Radha-Londonishvara, Should we stop for Arti, or should I finish?
You can finish that story and then we'll...
Okay. Yeah, so we were thinking if we were to increase the height of the handrails on the cart, it would look really strange. It would look out of proportion. Or if we put ropes and it would look like a boxing ring up in the air or something. So so I had to kind of think up all kinds of various things to say to them. So we said, well, it's a cultural, it's a kind of scaled down version of a religious chariot we have in India. So we can't, for religious reasons, we can't change the proportions. So we were playing the religious discrimination card on them. You know, you want to mess around with our proportions, you know. So it was that one, and then it suddenly occurred to me that I could say the devotees were sitting down, and then it meant that the handrails, they're only this high, they'd be chest high. So I told him that the devotees they sit down, they're not allowed to stand up when it's moving. And then also there were meant to be no gaps in the handrails. And of course there's these gaps. And so I said that no one sits within 2 meters of any of the gaps. So we had Damodar Krishna, the procession organizer. Anyway, the guy went for it. We had one last one up my sleeve, which we haven't used, which we may have to in the future, which was that we could use the kind of belt harnesses they use on transatlantic yacht races. They have these little belt harness with a wire, and you can clip it on in different places. but we didn't want to use that if we didn't have to. So anyway, the guy went for it. And so we had Damodar Krishna Prabhu, the procession organiser. He was standing at the bottom of Haymarket, because this guy from Westminster City Council, he was only going to be in Trafalgar Square. So as the carts are coming around the corner, he's telling all the pujaris to sit down, you know, put all the flames out, you know, we can't have any fire. So somehow we got away with that, and the guy moved to another department, so we haven't heard from him. But we were expecting that one at some point. Jai Savarani ki Jai, Sri Jagannath Rath Yatra ki Jai, Go Premanand Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Go Premanand